Welcome to GausRoth Tutorials. I'm GausRoth, and today I'm going to show you how to get the X, Y, and Z components of an object's rotation. That way we can use them for different things. So let's go into build mode, and I have a cube that has this get rotation component script on it. And I have a couple variables, so let's go over the variables quick. Under variables, I have created a X, Y, and Z number variable, an index variable, a rotation string variable, and a rotation x, y, and z string variable. These are the only variables that we're going to need to use. And at start, I'm going to debug the rotation of the string. So if we go into our console, let me bring it closer for you, and I hit reset, you see we have our object rotation, which is 332.8371, 237.5349, 308.0599. Now this can be an issue because we can only set them in the object panel to the second place after the decimal. So placing it like this will always give us some crazy long number. And now these are only 4 places, but they can be up to 5. We need to make sure there's at least 3 places before the period and 5 after the period like this, so that way we can get the individual components. So let's clear that and go over the script quick. When world is started, we're printing the rotation of the object as a string. And you can do that by going to values, go to typecasting, variable as string. Not all variables can be casted as all these. For instance, I can't cast a rotation as a vector. That would make this so much easier. Unfortunately, we have to go through this long process to get what we want, which is fine. So we print that, and then we're going to set our rotation string variable to that value. We're going to add a comma at the end because this is needed for the Z, to get the Z properly. And then we're going to send correct X. Now, the reason I have broken up the X, Y, and Z into separate events is because there's a lot going on, and we get errors because there's too many event actions running in a single event. First thing we do is we set our index to 0, which would be where the X resides. And then we're going to loop through them using a while loop. So while index is less than 12, and the reason it's 12 is because if we were to count the places, it's X being 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, period is 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, comma is 12. So let's get out of that. And that's why we're using 12. And the first thing we need to make sure is that there are enough characters in the rotation before the period. So there should be 3. And if there isn't, that's what this event does. So if substring of rotation from index with length of 1. Now this substring can be found under operators. Scroll down to text. It's closer to the bottom. Under text, and here's substring of string. Now we're going to get the substring of our rotation string that we set previously, and we're going to use the index that we are currently at in the while loop with a length of 1. Now this means it's only going to check that particular character. If I wanted to check 2 or 3, I can adjust this number to make that longer. Now if this character equals a period, and the index is less than 6 because the period is at the 6th index, I don't want to keep checking. So we're going to set rot. So if this returns true, we're going to set our rotation string to insert a 0 at 3, index of 3, into rotation. So you can find this insert under the list, the text under procedures. So it's insert substring at index. And all that's going to do is it's going to add a 0 as a string. It's going to add a text 0. So not a number, it's just a string at this particular index into the rotation. And that will make sure that there's at least 3 zeros or 3 numbers in the rotation. Now, once this is no longer true, we're going to check to make sure same thing, except for instead of it being a period, it's a comma. and we're going to make sure the index is less than 12. Now this part may not be necessary because we're only going to 12, but it's working. And I don't want to play with it. So we're going to, if this returns true, we're going to insert a 0 at our index. So now we, instead of wanting the 0 to be in the beginning, we want it to be at the end. So we have to insert it at our current index into the rotation. So that will add it to the end of the X component. Then we're going to set index to index plus 1, and we're going to continue to loop through this until we get to 12. And then once that happens, we're going to send correct Y. And that does the exact same thing as X, except for these number variables are different. So instead of starting at 0, we start at 13. Now I don't want to start at 12 because 12 is a comma, and that could make this confused. So we're going to start at 13, and we're going to continue to increase every run, adding a 0 at 17 if we're below 20, and adding a 0 at our index if our index is less than 26. And of course, if our period and comma, if these return true. So basically the exact same thing. Numbers are a little different. Z, exact same thing. Numbers are a little different. And then we're going to we're going to send set rot x, y, and z. Now this is where we're actually setting our individual components. So once we have corrected our string variable, our string rotation variable, to have all the zeros that we need, we are going to then set our rotation x string to the substring of rotation from index 3 with length 9. So before we were doing with length 1 to get 1 character, now I want 9 characters. So this will return just the x component, this will return just the y, and this will return just the z. And I'm setting those to string variables. You don't have to set them as string variables. You could just drop this whole thing into this, but for sake of testing and making it easy to read, we're going to do it this way. Then we're going to set x to rotation x as a number. So this will return the string variable as a number. And since they're already all numbers, it works pretty good. So we're setting our x, setting our y, setting our z, and then I'm going to print them. So if I clear this and reset, we see that our initial rotation is 319, 4301, 104, 7995, 101, 4493. Now, going through the correct x, y, and z, it is adding a 0 to the end, and then we are setting those numbers to this variable. And the reason we need to add these is because if I didn't, this would be all messed up. You might get the x right the first time, but these would be in different positions, and you wouldn't get the correct. You wouldn't get just the number. And if I were to say move it like that and clear and reset, now I have this different rotation. The y is a 68, and you see down here we're adding a 0 in front of the 68, and it is returning just the 68 because a number at the end or the beginning, they get trimmed out. And that is how you get the x, the y, and the z, or pitch, aw, and roll. So there are code blocks for this. An asset library. They are buggy. Very, very buggy, but I will show you. It's called a hand wheel. And if we, spring wheel, I think they both have it. So let's go bring this out. And I do not suggest using these. They are very buggy. They don't always work. But if you scroll all the way down on the longer of the two, and you go just a little bit, you see we have pitch of, yaw of, roll of. And these do return the X, Y, and Z of the rotation. However, they are buggy. They don't always work. There is a reason why those things are not in here. It's because of how buggy they are. That is all I have for today's video. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about this video, or have any suggestions for a future video, please let me know in the comment section below. Also, if you want a copy of this script, create an empty world, name it get rotation component. I don't think, did I spell it wrong? Or, oh, it just doesn't let me add anymore. Name it get rotation component, add me as an editor, and I will drop this in for you. And yeah, thanks for watching and have a good one.